Magnus asks, what is Biden doing? What is he doing? Is he trying to push us into World War III before Donald Trump, before he takes office? What is this garbage I'm hearing about all these states still counting votes? Sure you are. Let's take a look at this, because this, oh my God, man, irritating the hell out of me. All right.
Joining us now for more is retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Robert McGinnis. Colonel McGinnis, thank you for joining us. And so how does allowing Ukraine to strike Russia with U.S. supplied weapons change the Ukraine-Russia war?
Well, Artel is probably going to enrage Putin, which of course is problematic. Keep in mind, the intelligence community, according to the New York Times, recently said that Ukraine is losing the war. Now, we know that Zelensky, as you just reported, has come to the United States weeks ago with a victory plan. And allegedly, when he met with President Biden, he made it very clear that using ATACMS and other long-range missiles, such as what the French and the UK just released, will be helpful. Now, unfortunately, it's a possibility that this could likely broaden the war. Now, keep in mind, the Chinese are allegedly providing lethal aid now to Russia. The Iranians have, and of course, as you just reported, the North Koreans have sent upward to 10,000 troops to Russia, allegedly that are going to be in the eastern provinces helping in the fight against Kursk. So you have a host of issues here. Allowing them to use HIMARS ATACMS that can reach 188 miles inside of Russia could be
ATACMS? Sounds like steakums.
Incredibly problematic.
Well, also, here's another question. Is there enough time for Ukraine to take advantage of these long-range missiles in the next 64 days? Enough to put Russia and the North Koreans on their heels?
Unlikely. ATACMS are not going to make a major difference, quite frankly. What it will do is put Mr. Trump, as he assumes the presidency, in a much worse situation because the Russians, like I said, have been enraged. And so you have a series of things that have happened, Arthel.
And I'm sure Putin knows what type of position this is between the three of these leaders, between Biden, Trump, and himself.
Mr. Biden, in fact, thought that, the war in Ukraine was going to bolster our industrial base. It didn't. And he also was hoping that it would degrade the Russian military. Unfortunately, what Vladimir Putin has done is upgrade his industrial base to produce more munitions. And he is, just increasing his selective service to bring more people into the ranks, to include, of course, North Koreans. So
I thought that was a wolf
of a much broader war. So
until
we
it turned
need to
around.
Be incredibly careful here about allowing Zelensky's so-called victory plan to go forward in a way that could just rob us all of our future freedoms.
Well, okay. You said that Putin's reaction has already been to increase his forces. Well, he's taking North Korean forces, so he's not that impressive. So his military is wounded by the smaller, mightier Ukraine. That said, listen, as we said, in 64 days, Trump will be the U.S. president. How do you think Trump's military advisors will guide him?
Well, it's going to take a while to bring them aboard. Clearly, Waltz and, perhaps Pete Hegseth and others will be able to advise him to go slow. Mr. Trump's already made it clear, Arthel, that he wants to get out of this war, wants Ukraine to have peace in the future. And I think that the statements over the weekend by Vladimir Putin suggesting that, he's ready to talk in a matter of speaking. And Zelensky has said as much as well. What we don't need to do at this late hour in the Biden administration is exacerbate a pretty bad situation that perhaps has a chance of resolving itself in a peaceful way in the near future. I think all of us want peace. What we don't want, obviously, is the total occupation of Ukraine by the Russians and more killing. And that's unfortunately what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
But is there any way to look at it from this other perspective, which is, sure, it's going to poke the bear, it's going to make Putin more angry and angrier and more fierce as he can be. But what's the other side of this? Because this agreement that could happen in the next 64 days or so means that Ukraine has to once again give up territory to Russia. So, you know, how is that a great move?
Yeah, yeah. This is a bad situation for all involved. I do believe with the Russian parliament having already accepted the 4 provinces of eastern Ukraine as part of its kingdom, and what Vladimir Putin has made very clear is he's not going to give away anything. And in fact, over the last few weeks, he's redefined his own nuclear doctrine in such a way that he says very explicitly that a joint attack by a non-nuclear state such as Ukraine, backed by a nuclear state such as the United States, will in fact allow him, if he so decides, to use tactical
He's
nuclear
not going to do that.
I don't think
won't.
he's going to do that.
You know that, Colonel. He's not going to.
But
so let me ask you this. Yeah.
But Arthel, he's been boasting about that for years. I understand that, but they had exercises here recently in Belarus with those same tactical nuclear weapons. He also has had exercises.
And he was talking about, it's just formality. This is already scheduled.
In the northeast or the northwest part of this country, talking about these things. Putin is a rational player, but at the same time, Putin is very hegemonic about not allowing NATO's encroachment into Ukraine and further east. And as a result, I do believe that Putin will draw a line there. And unfortunately, we've been playing around with the idea of allowing NATO membership to come to Ukraine. And that, I think, is a red line which might exacerbate the current problem.
Well, this is definitely a new wrinkle, a big wrinkle, a conundrum, if you will, for sure. So let me ask you, with all of this now at play, could this move prompt President-elect Trump to reconsider some of his cabinet picks, like Defense Secretary, Secretary of State, Homeland Security, DNI? I don't know. I'm just asking you, sir.
I was going to say, I wouldn't think so.
Quite possibly. Only because you need people with deep European experience, people that understand the Ukrainian culture, that understand the Polish culture. Those nations, are in a very tenuous situation, Arthel, as are the Baltics, as are the Nordic countries. They're ramping up for war. They believe that's inevitable. And so we need people that are advising the president that have firsthand knowledge about what is going on in that eastern area and really trying to get in the head of Vladimir Putin, which is incredibly difficult, much less in President Xi's head, who I would argue is sort of manipulating some of what's going on with Russia. After all, if he's willing to provide lethal aid and buy up all the extra energy that Putin is willing to sell, then he's fully supporting what he's doing. And that sends a very bad message. And no wonder the Europeans are nervous in the service.
Nervous in the service.
A lot to keep an eye out on. Retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Robert McGinnis, thank you very much.
Man, look. It says here now, Biden is under fire for Ukraine escalation. Yeah, I would think so. Good Lord.
Another Fox News alert. President Biden attending his final G20 summit in Brazil at any moment.
Oh, that looks nice out there.
Shots of Rio. Yeah, this after the president signed off on Ukraine's use of long range. This after the president signed off on. Yeah, this after the president signed off on Ukraine's in Brazil at.
Damn. Oh, it looks nice. Wow. Guess I need to check out Brazil.
At any moment. Man, look at the beautiful shots of Rio. Yeah, this after the president signed off on Ukraine's use of long-range U.S. weapons inside Russia called ATACMS.
Lucas Tomlinson.
ATACMS. There's that word
Rio
again.
de Janeiro in Brazil. Hey,
why are you making it catchy? Like it's Steakums. Like it... Whatever.
Well, good morning, Ainsley. Good morning, guys. This is something that Ukraine's President Volodymyr...
Like war is really serious. I don't know. They had other names in the past, right? Like Fat Boy and all that stuff. Like, whatever.
Zelensky has been begging President Biden for for years now, and it's notable that specific type of American missile, as you mentioned, Brian, the ATACMS, have been used to strike Crimea in the past, but there were restrictions on using them inside Russia no longer. Now, Zelensky had been complaining for a little while now that only 10% of the weapons that Congress approved, remember that $60 billion package, only 10% of the weapons in that package has arrived into Ukraine. Now, speaking of arrival, President Biden arrived here in Rio last night. It's notable, guys, there was no red carpet rolled out for his arrival, as we're about to see here. Now, China's President Xi Jinping was afforded that honor. Biden attended an economic summit in Peru before coming here, where China was given the rare honor of a state visit. Biden was not. Brazil is also extending that same honor to Chinese President Xi here in Rio, not Biden. Today, Biden will attend meetings here in Rio on global hunger and have a reception with world leaders at an art museum. Putin is not here, of course. Now, officials say Biden has signed off on this limited counterstrike, allowing Ukraine to use American missiles with a range of up to 90 miles that come in single warhead and also cluster munitions. The goal is to hit North Korean soldiers that have deployed to Russia, specifically the Kursk region, and only this area inside Russia where Ukraine launched its incursion back in August. Now, Ukraine is forbidden, Brian, to use these missiles, American missiles, elsewhere. Biden's decision to use these longer-range missiles comes one day after Russia launched one of its largest attacks on Ukraine since the start of this war, firing over 200 missiles and drones. Those drones.
Man, I bet you Ukraine is seriously toe up. And you know they don't show us everything, you know what I mean?
Ukraine, of course, targeting Ukraine's energy infrastructure, where winter has already arrived. Now, yesterday, Biden became the first sitting president to visit the Amazon.
I'm proud to be here. The first sitting U.S. president to visit the Amazon rainforest. History is literally watching us now. So let's preserve this secret place for our time and forever, for the benefit of all humanity.
You know what I hate when I hear those stories about how much rainforest is being cut down, how many species of life are destroyed? See, this is what I mean by how humans are, at the same time, one of the greatest creations on this earth, and at the same time, the absolute worst piece of shit things on this planet.
After losing the 1912 election, Theodore Roosevelt made an ill-fated trip along the Amazon, almost killed him. Now, pretty soon, going back to Ukraine, you could have American weapons being fired by Ukraine to kill North Korean soldiers inside Russia, guys.
And Lucas, there's a story out. Bloomberg's had a story this morning that North Korea, we know they've sent at least 3,000 troops to help Russia. Bloomberg says there's a possibility they could send up to 100,000.
Lord.
That's right, Steve. That's the big concern here. Of course, President Biden met with South Korea's president in Peru. The South Korean presidents are...
See, I feel they're trying to kick this. See, Trump's trying to stop it all. Let's get it all done before he gets in office. See?
On the ground here in Rio as well. This has certainly been concerning for South Korea and certainly for the president. It was very clear when we spoke to Deputy National Security Advisor John Feiner that the deployment of these North Korean forces, which could be up to 100,000 inside Russia, that was the game changer, and that's what changed the White House and President Biden's calculus, Steve.
Lucas, I think it has a lot to do with who won the election, too. Because he only has 2 months to put his agenda forward. But thanks so much. The ATACMS go 190 miles an hour.
No question, Brian.
375 pounds of explosives. It'll be big, but we need our allies to do the same thing. They're waiting for our go-ahead to lift restrictions. But now the UK, Germany, everybody's got to go in there because you put 100,000 men into that fight to a country that has lost about 700,000. The estimates are Russia lost 700,000 off the battlefield, 250,000 dead. It's a stunning number, but they don't care about their people. They put in the poor, the one without influence, and they basically tell them, now you got to go. And according to General Keane, they're out of incentive. They're out of money. Right. They were paying them extraordinary amount of money. So if your kid died in the fight, you would get some money. Now all of a sudden they're drying up there. So
how do you know how many are killed? Since you can't really trust.
If that's the number they give, you got to figure it's probably a lot bigger than that. I mean, they're rough estimates, but Russians don't push back on it. Well,
Good Lord.
So we're at a point where everybody would love a ceasefire or an end to it, but what type of leverage do you have when Trump gets in and talks? If right now they're taking land and they're holding on to a little bit of Russian land, but if they could get on the offensive, and when Putin comes to the table, when Trump takes over, then Zelensky has a better chance of holding on to more of his property.
So you tell me Ukraine's winning right now? Is that what I'm hearing? I think someone else said something about them being the smaller but the mightier of the two.
Well, Donald Trump ran on wrapping it up as quickly as he can, so I don't think he really cares what the Biden administration does, because on day one, he's going to do stuff his way. His national security advisor...
Please, hurry up.
He wants Zelensky to have as much leverage as possible.
But they can't come any
Putin's
faster.
going to be less apt to do a deal if he feels as though momentum and everything else is on his side.
They won't talk until after the inauguration.
I've heard contours of what he's talking about with both Putin and Zelensky, and that it sounds like ultimatums to both of them. So it's like, okay, let's wrap this up, which means less fighting. Anyway, Brian talked to Michael Waltz, this current congressman from the great state of Florida. He is the president's pick for NSA, and he had this observation about how Russia is escalating, which is not good for anybody.
It's another step up the escalation ladder, and nobody knows where this is going. North Korea is unleashing ballistic missiles, artillery, now tens of thousands of soldiers. The administration responds by lifting this restriction. North Korea sends more soldiers. South Korea is now saying it may get engaged. China is buying oil from Iran for pennies of the dollar. Iran is using that to send missiles and drones into Russia that is then hitting Ukrainian critical infrastructure. So this is a development, but it's a tactical one. President Trump is talking grand strategy here. How do we get both sides to the table to end this war? What's the framework for a deal? And who's sitting at that table? This is an all-star team, Brian, that President Trump is assembling that will think through these broader strategic issues and how do we drive this war to an end, as President Trump promised on the campaign trail.
Right. There'll be a lot of effect because I know denying Iran will stop them from replenishing to a degree Russia. That could help. And then you have leverage over China if we stop allowing Iran to sell cheap oil to China. So it's going to be a new sheriff in town.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian.
Man, look. I'm sure that just made Biden severely unfavorable in a lot of Americans' eyes. Post your comments down below. Let me know what you think about this situation. If you got any extra details, post them in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.